I'm joined by the author and broadcaster Jenny Kleeman, TalkTV's political editor Kate McCann, and TalkTV presenter Richard Tice. Well, welcome to all of you. A lot of views here, but let me start with the politics of this, Kate, because this is quite a bold statement by Keir Starmer. It follows the local elections. On the face of it, a big win for Labour, a big loss for the Tories. But most of the maths around it say that if that was replicated in a general election, Labour would have to form a coalition, which would not be ideal for them. So it's not a home run anyway. This issue of wokery, of all these social issues, of the culture wars, why has he decided that he's going to go out and say none of it matters?
I think this is two things. I think this is Keir Starmer trying to assert some authority and project some confidence, which is why he keeps saying things like, we are on course to win the next general election, when you're right, actually. These local election results don't show that. They show he could form the largest party, he could form a coalition, but he's definitely not on course to win the next general election. So I think a little bit of it is about confidence. He wants to show, I'm on top of it, I'm not going to be led by the agenda, I'm going to lead it. But I think there's some fascinating polling behind this, because most people now, according to YouGov, do recognise what woke means. They know what woke issues are, they understand the terminology, they understand what it means to them. And I think one of the things you said in your introduction about heritage and culture is really important here, because for a lot of people, they may not identify what matters to them as a woke issue, but it is about their culture, it's about their heritage, it's about history. And actually, they care deeply about those things.
Now, if you frame it, you see, if you say, would you care more about cost of living crisis or the woke issues, given that stark choice, I can imagine people say, well, obviously right now, the money. But actually, it goes a lot deeper than that.
Yeah, it does.
And that's why I think it's a really interesting political move here, because I think he's wrong. You know, when I interviewed Rishi Sunak, and actually, more interestingly than that, when I asked him what's a woman, he said an adult human female. I interviewed Anthony Albanese, who's the Prime Minister of Australia. He's a progressive from the left, diehard. And he said immediately an adult female, because in Australia, which is a pretty progressive country now, even in Australia, they've had this backlash now to politicians not saying simple biological facts like that. So it's an interesting play that Starmer, who's our Albanese, has decided this is the way to go.
I think what Sir Keir Starmer feels he needs to do, everything about what he's doing right now is in stages. He's a stages man. You know, the first stage was the local elections, prove we can do it okay, throw off the shackles of the left wing of the party, isolate Corbyn, Diane Abbott too, okay, fine, that's the next stage. What trying to say that woke issues don't matter is about is trying to neutralise a problem that he very much still has to tackle. And you saw in those clips there from Sir Keir Starmer, 99.9% of people, women don't have a penis. Well, that's problematic. It's still not clear enough for some people. And actually, that's going to dog him through this leadership campaign if, as we expect, some in the Conservative Party intend very much to put those particular issues front and centre.
And Richard, I mean, the problem he's going to have is that they're going to bring up people like Rosie Duffield and other Labour politicians who've been really shamed and vilified for defending basic biology.
Completely. And what it shows is that actually he's completely out of touch with his core, very socially conservative northern heartlands that he has to win over big time if he is going to get a majority. And he's nowhere near it. And, you know, for that constituency, they know exactly what a woman is. And they also do not want their children to be taught things around gender questioning in primary in the early years of secondary school.
You know, even Tom Hanks today came out and said that he refuses to read any books which have been dragged into the modern morality. In other words, all this issue around Roald Dahl and everything, he won't read them. If they have a disclaimer saying we've changed words and stuff, he said, I'm not going to read it. I loved that, because he's in Hollywood, which is normally the wokest place out there. And I feel that woke worm has really turned, because most people do not think that way. This is a small, noisy minority of people who genuinely think they have this self-righteous belief that what they say not only is the right view, but the only view allowed.
But it's also a question of actually strong, principled leadership. If he doesn't have the courage and the conviction to say exactly what a woman is, then actually it's women who fought for equality for decades and decades.
And for the vote.
And for the vote, who feel most offended by this outrage. And, you know, the truth is the real winner in these local elections was the not vote party, because the turnout was woefully low.
Yeah.
And I think many, many women are saying, well, just hang on. I want to find out who knows what a
Let's
woman
go to the other woman on the panel. I assume you're identifying as a woman.
I identify as a woman.
Right.
Yes.
What's your view of this?
Well, I think Keir Starmer is absolutely right because, we know that the Conservative government deployed the queen of anti-woke, the self-proclaimed scourge of the wokerati, in much of their campaigning in the run-up to the local elections. She brought up things like Rotherham and Rochdale, which are
Who are you
from
talking
10
about?
years. Suella Braverman.
Right. I wouldn't call her the queen of anti-woke.
Well, she's the one who complains about the tofu-eating, Guardian-reading wokerati. She very much positions herself.
But that wasn't why they did badly in the local election.
No, well, I mean, certainly the pitch that they were, the way they were pitching themselves was as.
I
as
saw.
the
Let me
scourge
just stop you there because I saw a very interesting poll that came out overnight about why people had switched who voted Tory in 2019, why they switched to Labour. Almost all of them, I mean, like the top, 50-60%, right, were saying reasons to do with the Conservative Party just being on the job too long,
This is the point.
doing a
when
bad job.
it comes to your vote,
But it wasn't about
how
the
you
woke.
vote.
The woke stuff to me could be a real problem for Starmer.
I think when you cast
if he's
your
not
vote,
careful.
I think when you cast your vote, you think, is this candidate going to improve my life? And improving my life will be in terms of, can I get a GP's appointment? Can I afford to feed my kids? Can I put the electric on in my house? That's why people vote. They don't vote about these culture war issues. And they might matter. We need to get much better at using language accurately.
But if I said to you, what's a woman? What do you say?
I would say, Piers, a woman is an adult human female.
You would?
I think most people do agree that.
And if I say to you, given the way this debate's now moved about trans athletes in sport, what is your view of that?
My view is that there are times when sex has to trump gender. And when you look at prisons, when you look at...
So would you let any trans athletes
sports,
compete in women's sport?
I personally don't think they should until there's evidence
Now,
that
would
shows
you have said
could.
that a year and a half ago?
Yes, I would have. And
Right.
I have said these
But you
things.
see, I would
definitely.
say you...
But there's an assumption that
but you would
people
say
on the
you're
left are all of one
I know, I'm
particular-
not pigeonholing you, but would you describe yourself as progressive left or not?
I have never used that word to describe myself before, but I think I represent a lot of women who would call themselves left-wing.
Just